what we focus on in our businesses that we've had the most success in and what our current business offers other people are virtual assistants who live in the Philippines. And we've chosen the Philippines because of several key factors. One,
who is the right type of business owner to to jump into this endeavor? To look to hire VAs. I mean, who is kind of that model or that image of the person who would benefit from this?
So really anyone who has at a fraction of the cost of a typical executive assistant, where a lot of companies now are cutting that role because it's just too expensive. It would cost $60,000 to $80,000 a year conservatively to hire someone in the US to do that role, when for $20,000 a year, you can have a top-notch executive assistant as a VA handle that for you. And then on the flip side, go into the solopreneur. If you're a solopreneur, you're getting started, you might be thinking to yourself, I don't even have the income right now to pay $2,000 a month to have help. Well, the reason you don't have the income yet is because you haven't been delegating.
Welcome to the Abundant Journey podcast, where we talk with incredible entrepreneurs who give world-class advice from their own journeys. I'm your host, Nick James, and I'm a commercial banker turned business owner, along with my co-host, Nick Offenkamp. We want to help you grow and scale your business while not losing sight of what matters most. Join us as we learn from the experts what it takes to grow a $1 million business. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Abundant Journey podcast. We have another YouTube special, a coaching call today with a fan favorite and a familiar face. Harley Green is hanging out with us today. We had Harley and his wife Adrienne on our podcast a few months back and wanted to bring Harley back on for a coaching call. But Harley, I'm not going to do the introduction. First, remind our guests who you are and also tell us where you're at today, because that plays a little bit into your story.
Absolutely. So my name is Harley Green. I'm an entrepreneur, real estate investor, and we are digital nomads. We started being digital nomads in 2024. And so we spent 3 months in Colombia, 3 months in Mexico. And at the moment, we're enjoying a month in the Philippines.
Oh, man. And I think the last time we had you on, you guys were in Colombia. That's when we did the podcast episode. I would encourage listeners to go back and check out that episode, because you get to hear more of their story and the inspiration behind it. But man, how is the Philippines?
We love it. The people here are incredibly friendly. And as a Westerner, and especially an American citizen, it is really easy. People speak English here. It's all over the place. All the signs are in English. All the menus and restaurants are in English. And so as far as like a foreign country, especially like in Southeast Asia, it's really easy to get by here. It's very affordable. There's beautiful parts of the country to explore. Even in the cities, there's really nice areas as well. And so we're just really having a great time getting immersed in the culture, enjoying the local food, and seeing all the sights.
Oh, are you guys, one thing I don't think I had asked you guys, are you documenting your journey as you go from country to country?
We don't really have anything public on that. That's not really our purpose. We're doing this more as just a family enrichment. So of course, we've got photos we share once in a while with, our friends on Facebook and things like that.
I love that, man. Well, it's good to catch up with you again. Thanks for hanging out. Listeners, as you know, we've been doing some of these coaching calls with folks we've had on the podcast because we said, hey, let's go beyond the inspirational stories. Let's dive into the nuts and the bolts and the how-to of folks have been successful. So before we go right into the practical stuff, Harley, remind the audience, what has allowed you guys to get to a place of traveling the world with your family? Because a lot of folks, they hear that and they say, well, probably one of two things. I'd never do that, or that sounds incredible. How do I do that?
Absolutely. So early on in our investing journey, we were realizing that there's just not enough time in the day to do all the things we want to do and still have great investments or side businesses. At the time when we got started with real estate investing, both my wife and I had full-time jobs, and managing the real estate portfolio and our investments was taking up a lot of time and taking away from things we valued. And so we learned about using other people that are highly skilled and motivated, that are happy to take on these tasks that were taking our time away from higher value activities. And these are called virtual assistants. And so we've successfully leveraged them both in our investments as well as other businesses that we've successfully built up and exited. And so we've learned the hard way, the tough lessons of finding the right people and how to work with them. And we've kind of packaged that all and used my background as a computer engineer, leveraging technology and AI to really make it easy for people now to get connected with virtual assistants and work with them in the most cost-effective and efficient way.
Man, I love how you really summed that up in a nice bow. What's interesting to me is that so many folks really make this emphasis on, hey, you can become a real estate investor to give you time freedom, to give you the life you want. And I see that so often, whether I'm scrolling on social media or you hear about somebody who's done that, but yet you guys took it a step further to say, actually, we did that and we were that, and recognize that even in that step, there were still more things that needed to be done before we wanted that dream lifestyle, which I think is good. So let's camp on VAs. I mean, that's where we're going to spend a bulk of our time here today. But for the common business owner or the common person, I think most of us do know what that means, but maybe step back just a little bit, define the VA. Is that somebody, in the States? Is that somebody all over the world? Like, who is a VA who is a VA and how do they fit into a business model?
Yeah, so VA is a virtual assistant. So really anyone who is working in a business virtually and performing like assistant type level roles could be considered a virtual assistant. Now, most people have a connotation and understanding that when people are talking about like VAs in general, they typically mean people who live overseas from the US. And the reason for that is because a lot of other countries have much lower costs of living, yet still have a talented workforce. And so you're able to find people who live overseas, are talented and speak English fluently, and live in an area that's much lower cost of living. So you're able as a US business owner to take advantage of that arbitrage of cost of living by providing someone else an incredible life-changing opportunity while still saving a huge amount on your labor costs. And so what we focus on in our businesses that we've had the most success in and what our current business offers other people are virtual assistants who live in the Philippines. And we've chosen the Philippines because of several key factors. One, they are very pro-American. If you look back at the history of the Philippines, Americans have helped them in multiple ways, and they are just kind of culturally feel indebted to us and really are trying everything they can to do well by Americans. Two, English is a primary spoken language here. It comes from being a U.S. territory for many, many years. So English is, finding people that speak English fluently and with minimal accent is easy. They have prolific high-speed internet. So getting online and having video calls is easy to do. And then, of course, having a highly educated workforce. So education is really important in the Philippines. And so it's really easy to find people that have college degrees and are professionals that are able to support U.S. businesses in a wide variety of ways while still, being very affordable compared to typical U.S. workforce.
Yeah. What are some stereotypes that you have heard from business owners, or maybe fears from business owners that say, I'm not going to hand these tasks over to somebody on the other side of the world? I mean, what are some of those fears maybe you've heard?
Yeah, a lot of people are concerned about security. Cybersecurity is a huge concern for people. My background actually is computer engineering. I have a master's in cybersecurity with computer science. And so that was a big concern for me as well. And here's the great thing. In the Philippines, they don't have access to US banking systems like US-based employees would. So if you have employees that are working with financial data, there's actually a notably higher risk of bad, acting people hiring someone local. Just think about like the connections they might have, especially thinking of maybe an attorney's office. They hire a local assistant, and that assistant's going out to the bar one night, maybe talking to an assistant who works at another law firm, get a few drinks in them. Some information might be shared there that could be very detrimental to that business. Versus having someone who works in the Philippines, what are the odds that they're going to go out and talk to someone else who also works in the Philippines and also works for the law firm that's competing with you on a certain case? It's much lower. Another way that we also have mitigated that risk with our business Workergenics is that we keep the people in the Philippines, the VAs, as our employees, and then our clients have the service through us as a US-based business. And so that way, if there ever was to be a problem, they have a US entity that can make it right with full liability and cyber insurance coverage.
That's interesting. My mind didn't go there, it's funny because the banking background that I have, you would think that it would, both from a risk mitigation standpoint and also protecting your assets. I think that's super helpful to think through, though. What in terms of, maybe that also brings the question: who is the right type of business owner to jump into this endeavor? To look to hire VAs. I mean, who is kind of that model or that image of the person who would benefit from this?
So really anyone who has tasks that can be done on the phone or a computer, and they either have really expensive people that are, more than $12 an hour doing them now, or they're doing them themselves and they're growth minded and they want to get it off their plate and focus on higher value tasks, are great candidates. I mean, we work with businesses from all sizes, small to large. And, in larger businesses, we'll go in and we'll place executive assistants with executive leadership teams so they can handle all that email and calendar management at a fraction of the cost of a typical executive assistant, where a lot of companies now are cutting that role because it's just too expensive. It would cost $60,000 to $80,000 a year conservatively to hire someone in the US to do that role, when for $20,000 a year, you can have a top-notch executive assistant as a VA handle that for you. And then on the flip side, go into the solopreneur. If you're a solopreneur, you're getting started, you might be thinking to yourself, I don't even have the income right now to pay, $2,000 a month to have help. Well, the reason you don't have the income yet is because you haven't been delegating. I love this story. When my wife moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee as a new real estate agent there, no network, no connections, starting completely from scratch. The first thing she did was hire an executive assistant as a virtual assistant, because she knew that in order to do the amount of business that she wanted to make the income she needed and do those deals, she had to get the stuff off of her plate that was holding her back from doing the really high impact things, contacting the leads and closing the deal. So she had that EA do all those other processes, like all the paperwork and all the marketing, so that she was freed up and was able to go from a solo agent to running a team and selling it successfully in 2 years.
Yeah, that's interesting how, sharing that story of her, it really injects speed and efficiency and also helps offload those tasks. I think we continue to hear from folks, and you guys have lived it, where you have your superpower and you have your strengths, and you want to not, the old school wisdom says, hey, up your things that you don't do well, learn to get better in and learn to improve. But I think the more and more we dive in and the more and more we pursue business and success, I think a lot of times we learn that no, actually find somebody to do those tasks and play to your strengths and play to your superpowers. And I think that's kind of partly what you're saying here with hiring folks like this.
Yeah, I would challenge people to look at the successful business people that they're aware of and ask them, hey, do you still spend your time like doing your own personal accounting on QuickBooks, or do you spend your time doing social media management? I would be shocked if any of them say that. And just, what happens when you go into a doctor's office? Does the doctor greet you at the front desk? Does the doctor do your insurance paperwork? No, the doctor's doing the stuff that only the doctor can do.
Yeah, that's a great analogy there. So let me ask you this: where do you get started in this process of bringing on VAs? I'm thinking too, and we're going to hit both. One, again, the skeptic, and I'd love to hear maybe some of the bad stories or the mistakes made or the lessons learned there. And then, but on the other side, I want to talk to the person who's like, yeah, this makes sense, and I'd love to get started. I mean, is it as simple as going to Google and trying to dive in and learn more? Is it finding folks like you guys to, partner with? I mean, where does somebody get started with something like this?
Yeah, the first thing that needs to happen is the same as if you'd be hiring someone local, and that's figuring out what the role needs to look like. So what I recommend people do is kind of do a self-assessment. Just take note and stock of what you do on a daily basis. Write down the things that, is happening and it can be done by somebody else. And if it's on the phone or computer, circle those things. If it's not, if it's in person, cross those things off the list. And then take the things off the list that only you can do or that you might do better than anybody else because it's your really unique special skills. everything else left on that list is a great candidate to consider having a virtual assistant handle. Now, one individual virtual assistant may not be able to do all the things that you as an entrepreneur with, decades of experience from different jobs and things can do as well. But if they can even do 80% of that role, that's still a huge win, saving you 80% of the time that you would have spent doing those tasks so that you've got that much extra time to do other things. And so once you've got that role description down, the next step is figuring out, okay, how many hours is this going to take? And one of the pitfalls that I see so many people do is try to hire part-time for everything. They want to really skimp and save on those costs, even though, you're already saving a huge amount compared to a local assistant would be. And they end up, this is the problem, that you'll find someone who's really desperate out there that's like, yes, like I'm so desperate to get a job. I'll take this part-time job opportunity. Well, most people, even in the Philippines with the great pay that you pay, even if it's only part-time, they really need full-time work to be comfortable. And especially with like benefits, time off, things like that, which they're not going to get usually in a part-time job. And so even people that have those part-time jobs, they're going to have one foot out the door looking for full-time work. And so you're going to invest time training this person, working with them, building a relationship. And then maybe 3 months down the road, they finally land that full-time job and they say goodbye. And that just wastes a huge amount of time for business owners. We personally experienced that when we were getting started. We're like, oh, hey, we don't have 40 hours a week of bookkeeping to do. Let's just hire a part-time bookkeeper. Well, we got burned doing that. And so the solution is finding people that are level up. Don't go with that like $2, $3 an hour VA ad that you might see on Google. Pay a little bit more, get someone who's a little bit more skilled and can do more than one core area. So that's kind of what we specialize with Workagenics now, is helping people get what we call ultimate executive assistants, where they can do the bookkeeping, but they also have skills maybe in marketing or administrative support or handling customer service calls. So then it's a lot easier to get 40 hours worth of work in one person.
No, that's a great point. And I think you're right. A lot of times, maybe the mindset of somebody who wants to hire a VA, they go in with it of, well, I want just the lowest cost option. And so then any ways to cut that, but you're not recognizing, and maybe this is what you're saying, is lead with value. Find someone who's going to truly provide value to your business and help you level up, help you take those different tasks and responsibilities off your shoulders. Don't be thinking mindset of cheat, be thinking mindset of value.
Absolutely. So, once you've got that value mindset, you've got the job description, you're kind of who you're going after. The next step is finding the person. How do you connect with these virtual assistants who live overseas? So there's several ways to do it. You can, if you're getting started and budget's super tight and you want to invest the time and figure it out yourself, you can bootstrap finding a VA. You can Google, hiring a VA. You can look for VA job boards online, and you can post ads up there, and then you're going to get your email inbox flooded with job applicants and resumes, and you're going to have to figure out how to sort through all of those. You're going to have to schedule those interviews yourself. You're going to have to spend your time doing all those interviews and then trying to figure out what are the questions you need to ask when someone lives overseas. What cultural differences are there? Are there differences with how the utilities work and power outages? Do I need to be aware of that? Do I need to ask additional questions about their equipment, their power backup, what kind of internet they have? Do I know what kind of internet service providers are reliable in the area they live? So those are all things that you kind of have to figure out if you're going to do it yourself. So that's option one. That's the cheapest way as far as a dollar cost perspective. It's the most expensive way as far as the time investment to find someone. Another option is there are services out there that are like placement agencies. So you can go to them, you can kind of say, hey, here's my job description. And for typically like a $4,000 to $10,000 fee, they will do that job search for you. And they will then say, hey, here's like one or two people that we think would be a good match. And then you can choose the one you like. But then it's on you to maintain all the payroll, the overseas payments, bonuses, all the infrastructure, getting them a phone number, email account, stuff like that. That's completely on you. So it's kind of a level up as far as your time investment. It costs a little bit more, and you still are having to do a little bit more work. And then the third option is doing a full service concierge virtual assistant firm. There's several out there. That's what we focus on, is just taking care of everything for people. So not only are they going to do the talent search for you, all the interviewing, a lot of times they're going to do additional training and then provide all kinds of additional resources. So for example, we provide a task management portal for our clients built on Monday.com. So it's really easy to have one place to keep track of what everyone's working on and have communication. We provide professional email accounts with Google Workspace. So that's easy to communicate with them and have cloud storage. And then, of course, a lot of times in this full service model, you have those additional protections like free replacement guarantees. And you've got that US, especially if it is a US based entity, you've got that protection and guarantees of having a US based entity kind of standing behind that assistant.
Sure. No, I think that's good to see that there's the different routes that you can take. And I think you recognize that you specifically in that full service model, you're not for everybody. There's a lot of people who are the DIYers, the bootstrappers, and they want to do that. But I think there's value in each path, right? And I think ultimately, if this is something you're serious about, having somebody to link arms with, like you guys, and help you along that process is going to be a really helpful thing. Just to know that you're not kind of navigating and the bumps and the bruises and the windy path along the road. You guys have lived through some of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there's something really to be said about culture, especially with the foreign workers. Culture can be very different than what you might expect with US-based employees. And things they value are not things that you as a US business owner might even think about. And so what we've seen in our business is a much lower turnover rate of employees with our clients because we have a really strong culture that we have set up with our local employees in the Philippines, where we do things with like in-person meetups where they're building relationships with each other and having strong connections. And by remaining our employees and having access to like our internal resources, our internal chats, they are friends with each other and supporting each other, especially in situations where like maybe they get a new responsibility from a client that they haven't done before. They can go on our internal chat and say, hey, my client just asked me to set up this lead funnel from Facebook ads to Zapier to, HubSpot. How do I do that? And then like 10 people will just jump in the chat and be like, oh, I've done it. Here's a procedure I made. Or let me share my screen. We can walk you through it real quick and teach you how to do it. And so there's much more camaraderie and support in this model, and actually results in a exponential addition in value compared to like trying to do it yourself or doing that middle model of just getting the placement. Because if you just have a placement or do it yourself and you just got one VA or maybe two, there's no culture happening there. They've got no allegiance to anybody. Like they get sick or have personal issues, they're out of there. Versus like our administrative team, we have caught so many issues that come up and are able to solve them preemptively with like, financial struggles. Like, it's no problem. We'll give you a payday loan or something like that, advance your pay so that you don't have that stress that would have caused them to quit normally.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm going to take let's go a little bit further there with culture, because I think that's huge, but I love the way that you guys have worked to solve that. And that's a huge emphasis because we know as business owners, culture is everything. Where you build that culture, it's easy to say, but not easy to do. So what are some other thoughts on how to bring, you guys have done well to build this culture for your folks, but what about, the business owner who wants to bring that culture to the VA? What are some tips or suggestions for how to encourage that, knowing that they're on the other side of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest key is really communication. The number one cause of failure that we see with professionals, business owners, and virtual assistants is just a communication failure. They get a virtual assistant that they think is going to just be like the silver bullet. Like, oh, I got a VA. My business is going to be perfect now. I don't have to do any more work. They're going to do everything for me. That is not how it works. This is a human being who needs to understand how you want things done, what your expectations are, what success looks like for you. And that needs to be communicated well. And doing it over just text messages or solely on a task portal isn't sufficient. You would not have a local employee and walk by them and ignore them in the office every single day and only text them. Right. And so it's really important to have at a minimum a weekly check-in meeting that's face-to-face like this. Do a Zoom call, Google Meet, whatever it is. Just so you're like knowing this person who is working with you. These are people. These are not machines. It's not AI. Yeah. They may use AI to be more productive for you, but like they have human needs. They want to have connection. And so I would say that's the biggest thing with having culture and just having a successful relationship with another professional is having regular meetings and communication and doing it in a face-to-face video format.
I love that. That's so good. And I think that's super helpful, and I'm just thinking of the process from start to finish. You've definitely got me sold on continuing to up my business. It's service-based business with VAs. And I think that's really helpful. One thing I wanted to throw at you for fun, we recently had a guest on the podcast, and he's run multiple, I think it's Inc. 500 or 5,000 business companies, super successful. And he talked a lot about how folks try to hire that low tasks, the things I don't want to do and I just want to delegate. And he really said that there's a mistake in that, because what ends up happening is you're usually hiring folks at that entry level in those basic tasks. You're not hiring the cream of the crop per se to help up and level up your business. And so he said that's a mistake that business owners make. Instead, you need to be finding somebody who's really skilled, really talented, who is able to take you to the next level and free you up, like you're talking about and what Adrian was doing early on in the investor space. So I'm curious, do you agree with that statement? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts there after having lived with a lot of placements of VAs and things like that? But, what are your thoughts on that? Do you look for these really high skilled folks? Do you look to offload the entry level things? What's your take there?
Yeah, I think that it just comes back to balance. So, of course, having rock stars in a business is amazing, and everyone needs rock stars in their business. However, when most people are getting started, they're barely putting food on the table for themselves in a business, much less being able to hire a full-time rock star. And so virtual assistants can kind of fill that gap. They're a happy medium where they are not going to be incredible experts in any one area. If they were, they'd already be entrepreneurs and have their own business doing that service.
Sure.
So if you need specific help getting things kind of set up on like a one-time, which is often what people need, like getting help getting a website or marketing, things like that, getting a marketing strategy, hire a consultant, hire a rock star part-time, or, on a project-based basis, get them to train you on what they're doing. And then you have a virtual assistant for a fraction of that cost, take it and run and execute it for you. And the fact of the matter is, businesses have tasks that have to be done that are not the best use of Rockstar's time or your time as a business. Just throw it out there, like sending out invoices to clients, doing bookkeeping, posting on social media, managing an email or calendar, right? Your rock star is going to quit if you ask them to do those kind of things. And if nobody's doing it in a business, how are you going to respond to emails and get clients and invoice them, right? So those things have to happen. Enable your rock stars with virtual assistants. That's one of the areas that we've seen a ton of success is businesses that have rock stars in person already, giving them a VA as an executive assistant. So now your rock stars are only operating in their top 20%. And so you're still paying them the same, but you're getting way more value out of them and for a fraction of the cost of their salary. So it's like getting your business a huge boost with a much minimal cost and making your rock stars shine even more and have higher job satisfaction and lower turnover with you.
Yeah. I don't think I could have answered that better, man. That's solid. Last question here as we wrap this coaching call up here. And I appreciate your time today. And I want to give you a chance to kind of tell us how folks can get connected with you. But in the spirit of Abundant Journey, one of the things, as you know, that we're very focused on is, leveling up, growing your business, but not for the sake of being able to sip pina coladas on the beach in the Philippines. Just kidding. But, the heart behind Abundant Journey is, making the world a better place, making our environment better, the community, the society that we're a part of. How do we make that better? Speak for a minute just of the impact that, you guys have been able to have with folks that you would have never met before had you not dove into this world of VAs. And, I just think we always, within the spirit of what we're trying to build, continue to share those kind of stories, because it's looking beyond, this call has been very focused on how is it going to help your business, but talk a minute about how it's helping other people as well.
Yeah, well, the great thing about virtual assistants is it's a win-win situation. The business owner is getting a huge benefit by having a dedicated employee that's skilled and very affordable. On the flip side, these people who live in the Philippines especially, the poverty here is just incomprehensible to most Americans. Like you drive around, there's really nice places, but then you just go on the other side of that fancy mall and it's like really, really impoverished. It's hard to describe. And so what happens is giving these VAs these jobs is life-changing. And some of the stories that I hear are things like our video editor. He got running water to his parents' house because of this job. He was able to have himself taken care of and his family, and then have extra money to be able to put plumbing in the house that his parents have been living in for decades without running water.
Wow. Other
stories we hear about one of our longtime employees, she bought the family farm. Like she literally bought the land that her parents were like renting. And now they can live on that farm it, and be completely self-sustained rather than having this massive amount of their productivity go to rent every month.
I love those stories. And we're not talking here about charity cases. We're literally talking about giving folks an opportunity to better their lives while also benefiting your business and growing. And I think the very nature of being an entrepreneur, and I learned this as a banker a long time ago, which is why I was so attracted to entrepreneurship, which was be open-minded, be a creative thinker, and look to do things differently than the status quo. Then this is how we always do it. And so, again, on this call here, just thinking through, not only are you saving money, not only are you finding skilled people who do an amazing job, but you're also getting to bring them in, create culture under your passion, under the things that you're trying to do, but also you're making a difference in their lives as well. I love that. Harley, thanks for hanging out with us again today. And we're going to continue to do these coaching calls. For folks who do say, I would love to learn a little bit more about this VA process, I would love to maybe look at the services that you guys offer, I'm ready to take that step, where would you send people?
Yeah, just go to our website, workergenics.com/abundant journey. You can have a link in the show notes, and we'll have all the information there. We'll also have a free guide people can download that gives them 100 different tasks and responsibilities that people successfully have their virtual assistants handle, just to make it easier to go through as a checklist to be like, oh yeah, I'm doing that, and just get it off your plate.
That's awesome. Well, we will do that. We'll include links as well. Listeners, audience, YouTubers, thanks for hanging out with us today. As always, we will be back next week with another episode. Talk to you then.